I'm Sora Luxon, and this is Magic lesson number 62, Purpose and Perspective. Before I get into the lesson, big news already in the works. There's going to be astrologic videos, angelic videos, tree of life videos, all in their own playlists, and super excited about this. A spells, sigils, and chants type playlist all to itself. Obviously, that's a lot of podcasts and YouTube recording to get through, so they won't all appear tomorrow on the channel, but it's something lovely to look forward to as this little humble area grows. More fun, free, and hopefully thought-evoking, if not always entirely intuitively inspiring, at least informationally useful, ritual and hermetic magics content for everyone if they want it. And of course, I will continue to keep building our magic lessons playlists and deep dive tarot card explorations moving forward. And yes, to answer a specific question I received this week, when I get through all of the tarot cards, just a basic explanation of at least each one once, I will go ahead and add in some different types of readings, how to go about doing those, how to get into the right space energetically to do a reading. But that'll all be after I at least get through one interpretation of each card. All right, today's lesson, Purpose and Perspective. So if you've made it this far in the lessons, because we're at 60-something lessons, you've proven that you can't be triggered by simple egoic audio means, such as right, through endless videos. So you aren't easily egoically triggered if you've made it this far, or have an abnormal amount of patience. So probably you're a practicing magician of some kind yourself, a ceremonial magician, a high hermetic priest, a witch, right? You comprehend the expression, everyone uses magic, whether they know it or not, whether they will it or not, whether they use it or are used by it. If you've made it this far through listening to all of these videos and haven't been driven away by the occulted means I've presented yet, then you have an understanding of that concept. We know as we actively and intentionally engage with the great energies that those energies are always present. A river, if you will, with tides that can be charted and navigated, or that will carry you wherever they wish. I exampled throughout multiple videos for you one form of that by repeating the right, that's mental drifting. And you can see what it sounds like when someone presents themselves to the world in that way. That's just one way it can show itself. Versus when someone chooses willfully and intentionally to engage in their own rhetoric and how they're choosing to present it to others, as I'm doing now. See, now I'm not ending every sentence with, right? So it's a lot less, I don't want to say irritating, but there's a awareness that I am being purposefully aware of how I'm presenting myself. And when you do that, people notice. Even if it's only subconsciously, they're going to be, say, less irritated by you or take you more seriously. So that's one form of a tidal energy inside of magic. Audio, speaking language, that's symbols, and speech, that is spell work. And how we approach it, how we use it, matters. If you're a Freemason, for instance, you're going to know that rhetoric and the dialectic and how you speak to others is a big part of beginning to take control of your own mastery, your own formatting in a way. But if you don't, something else is going to take control. There's still going to be movement. There's going to be, a falling back into a more casual or lazy sort of self-interpretation or presentation, simply because you're not driving a willful force through it. I either way, when we talk about these energies that are all around us, these tides, there's going to be movement. There's going to be power coursing, seasons changing, time on the material plane elapsing. Whether we focus our power or not, those tides are ever present and will create patterns of blossoming, evolving, and self-regenerating effects. When we aren't setting our intention, when we're, say, drifting through life, rather than willfully embracing that we are an expression of it and focusing our purpose, when we aren't living our ritual, embodying our practice, specifically and willfully casting spell, sigil, sacrosanct sign, we are in a sense giving up our perspective, right? We're giving up our power, perhaps even recognition of our true purpose. And having done it for almost 60 lessons now, I'm going to tell you, thank you. I'm glad to not have to do right anymore as part of that example to lead you to this moment. For instance, early in neophyte practices, you begin the training of recognizing that your massively limiting, conditioned, egoic perspective is likely something you have little or no awareness of. So before you came to Magick, before you came to your practice, your meditation, whatever it is, that is likely who you were, right? You had little or no control over that egoic frame of mind as you began the ancient tradition of exploring willful awareness of when, as a neophyte, for instance, when you use the word I in daily speech. I am hungry. I am bored. I went to France. I like bluebirds. I think you're nice. I think I'm nice. I feel good. I want to go out, etc., etc. And that not only are you likely in a state of that very singular, narrow perspective where everything you think and say is operating, functioning from this incredibly narrow perspective, right? Diminished and diminishing position. But that even when you begin to recognize it, that you do it, that what you're really doing is walking around every day going, I, it takes willful effort to release and dissolve that weak construct. So even once you know you're doing it, it takes work to dissolve it and replace it with something else. Replace it with a far wider, stronger, and more powerful internal stance. And that has to do with shifting your perspective to where everything isn't based from, selfishness, from pure egoic reasoning, and instead comes into a larger awareness of everything and everyone around you, right? Something more comprehensive, a far more useful tool of comprehension, of understanding, and of expression, right? Of rhetoric, self-awareness, and even a loud silence. Another form of this, you see this in Buddhism, right? Early on in their training. A shift of perspective that goes from how you first present yourself to this new practice, this new possible regimen towards self-discovery and mastery, and learning how to want what you have and not what you don't. That's a Buddhistic principle. And it's a huge shift. It's a powerful shift in the dynamic. To learn how to want what you already have is to take complete hold and mastery of your reality. And that's a perspective shift. Perspectives are very important. Perspectives that begin to allow you as the magician, wizard, witch, dreamweaver, starseed, waypost guide, magi, bruja, druid, priest, knight, freemason, seeker of truth, to come into your real power, your genuine abilities, your divine flow, your freedom to explore and engage, not as limited minds have conditioned you to previously, but instead, however you wish to. Not as one ego screaming endlessly, unheard, because everyone else is also screaming and can't hear you. You even can't hear yourself because you're screaming into space ad nauseum. But instead of being that ego yelling aimlessly and endlessly for recognition, to become the balanced representative of the energies all of us have access to, and so many seem to ignore. My point is this: if you're a magician of any sort beyond the neophyte phase, you know magic is all about purpose and perspective. And many, many people have neither, while believing theirs is all there is. It's a irony in a way. It's hypocritical in another sense. It's asinine if you really look at it. Everyone is doing magic whether they mean to or not. So if you happen to be one of those who isn't practicing on purpose, right, something is practicing through or on you. Someone who isn't practicing magic purposefully, you are at the mercy of the energies and influences you have given your control over to. Your perspectives are limited and weak. And yes, that means being very much at the mercy of your own biases. Again, perspective, opinion. If people agree with your perspective, you'll be attracted, right? To them, they'll be attracted to you. Law of polarity. If people disagree with your perspective, right, you or they will be repelled. Again, it's the dynamic of oppositional force, polarity. Principle of Hermetic law. Not only are those mechanisms not going to be under your willed control, it's just an extremely narrow way to exist. It limits you. It's like closing 9.9 out of 10 doors of universal opportunity. In magic, we seek to be our own masters, to open all 10 of those doors, and willfully choose to cross those thresholds when and how we see fit for our own growth, enlightenment, mastery, and evolution on purpose, not perspective and purpose. We seek to become aware of the law of polarity. We seek to become aware of a lot of laws and master them, but this is one of them. And then intentionally manifest or banish, intentionally attract or repel, to make the dynamic of polarity useful, to make it serve us rather than us serving it, rather than allowing some narrow, self-aggrandized, egoic hubris to make that decision for us, forever keeping our choices and freedoms out of reach. Perspective isn't everything, and neither is purpose, but to the magician in application in daily life, they're pretty darn close. They are extremely important. Here's another example. Let's say you're a first-year Zealoter, if you're specifically in Enochian Hermetic magic studies, who didn't build a firm foundation in egoic dissolution. You didn't do that work. And hence your daily perspective on things like what is good and bad haven't changed much from when you first began magical work. You didn't do the work to dissolve or grow those perspectives, didn't take the time, didn't listen to your guides, or maybe even your physical mentor within a formalized mystery school. You didn't do it, and you just jumped ahead and decided you're going to cast your circle, run a quick LBRP, maybe a rushed ritual of the rose, induce a trance state, and now you're invoking, say, Raphael, right? The angel Raphael, to make your life better. That's where your intention is set, because, hey, if you have an angel at your beck and call, why wouldn't you jump ahead, skip the earlier neophyte work, and then call them down to do this sort of thing for you, right? Where's the possible harm in it? Well, without a firm foundation or the correct level of respect for the entity or for your own perspective and how it might be very limited and different and alien to the perspectives of what you're calling on, you're going to get your butt kicked, right? To someone who, say, in ignorance, an angel is going to behave more like a demon to them, right? If you're the bad guy in a room, right, the cop to you looks like the bad guy. Maybe not the cop. Let's say the angel. And if you're the good guy in the room, the angel looks like a good guy, but a demon, if you want to express it that way, again, not all demons are bad. That's a whole different thing, but I think you understand what I'm saying. Your perspective is going to define the influence you think an exterior entity is going to interact with you. So if you're a bad person, to you, an angel is a scary thing. If you're a good person, to you, the angel is a good thing, right? And if you call on one and you haven't done any of this perspective work to see how your thoughts are actually functioning, how your perspective is actually working, if you haven't looked to yourself first and you're making assumptions, if you haven't looked to your perspectives, Raphael, in this example, who you've called upon, is going to make your life better, exactly as you asked. Absolutely. But it's not going to be what you think. You're not going to enjoy it. And worst case scenario, you might not survive the process because you're not prepared for it. If your perspective is that Raphael is going to come down and make your life better by suddenly, say, giving you everything you've ever wanted, in your mind, that means you never have to work again. For you, that's your perception of what a good life would be. That's your idea of a better life. To never have to do anything ever again because you're given everything you've ever wanted. What you're going to get instead is what you're actually asking for, a better life. And that is a heavy dose of constant, extra, and exhausting labors, exhausting work in your life until you learn the lesson of how thankful you can and should be of that work, of how necessary it is, and of how it is required in order to have a good life. And until you realize that lesson, you won't get past it or surpass it. Until the brunt force of that lesson has smacked you so many times, so hard in the face, that you finally wake the heck up and say, thank you, I get it now. May I please have some more work? Until that happens, you'll just be facing endless, exhausting work, because that is what your ill-informed perspective of those events will be. That they're exhausting, time-consuming, and laborious. That will be your opinion of what's going on around you. While, in the meantime, it's Raphael's opinion that you asked for a good life, which to you meant less work because you're weak and confused. So he is clearing up your confusion. He is doing you a solid by showing you the truth. By beating the hell out of you on purpose, Raphael is giving you the opportunity you asked him for to learn this specific lesson and therefore actually improve, to actually have a better life for having learned it. That's Raphael's angelic perspective of the same situation. See, perspective matters. And if yours is shaky, a powerful lesson is going to wallop the heck out of you. Trust me, Enochian angels don't coddle people. If you call on them for help, they're going to help. You just aren't going to enjoy the process of how they go about doing it. Another example. Someone gets into a hit and run accident. They were tipsy, had a little too much, got into this car accident. No one was hurt, or at least they assumed no one seemed to be hurt. They just damaged someone else's vehicle. They jam back home, rush for their temple space, cast their circle, call on Raphael again. And they say, help me. Help me with this mistake I just made. Now, their perspective on what they're saying is, make sure I don't get caught, that I get off the hook, that I don't have to pay the fine. It's going to be something along those lines if they haven't looked to their perspectives earlier in their magical mastery and training. In the meantime, Raphael sees and hears the call, abides the call, and says, sure, I'm more than happy to help you. Next thing you know, the cops show up, arrest the person, because Raphael helped the authorities find you with a spiritual whisper here and there in their ear. Then you get the maximum penalty and have to serve years in prison. You get the most severe form of punishment that specific judge passes down. Again, Raphael's version of helping you, making sure that the judge had the most authoritarian state of mind that day that you went to trial with them. Maybe made sure that the judge actually just got that call in his chambers that his niece just got killed by a drunk driver right before your hearing. I've seen angels do things like that, right? Things very much like that. Angels don't mess around when it comes to getting results. Neither do demons or anything else. Most entities do not have the, limited type of human interactions and expectations we have. They get right to the point. They get results. And they're not worried about how they're going to go about getting there. So, as an entity, angels don't mess around when it comes to getting things done. Especially Raphael when it comes to healing, which is what you asked for. You asked for his help. More on that later. So you get the maximum penalty. And now you have to serve time. And you're sitting in a cell, yelling, weeping, being forced to actually deal with yourself. And you're thinking, what the holy heck, Raphael? I'm a magician. I asked for your help. I called on you. What did you do to me? And Raphael is sitting on the edge of your bed in the cell, invisibly resolute, glowing with eternal Sephirotic powers, power that outdates the primeval powers of the planetary sphere that is Terra, Earth. And he's saying, she, although you can't quite hear it, I am helping you. This is what you needed to improve your life. You needed to be caught. You needed to be removed from the environment you were in, even if it was against your will, because you wouldn't have done it yourself. You needed to be freed of the toxic influences and relationships that had so much control of you, that you alone didn't have the power to break free of it. That's what led you subconsciously to learn magic and call on me in the first place. You don't recognize it yet, but you will. Now look. You're in isolation, free of all those awful individuals you were surrounded by that you called friends. Now you're in a cell being forced to think in quietude you never had before. A quiet in a space that's been created for you. And oh yeah, by the way, you were an alcoholic and it was gonna get worse. Liver cancer was going to kill you in 5 years at 36 years old. But since I'm a healer, now you're in here, where I'm helping you. In this cell, you're dried out, and going to recover. Recover. And eventually, you're going to also thank me for that. 3 years from now, when you're out on early parole for good behavior, you're going to look back at the gate of this prison as the fence closes behind you, and see a vague shimmer of me standing there. Because, along with everything else, you'll have become far more in tune with your occult powers and properties. Being stuck in here meditating all the time and having to survive these situations is going to result in that. So you'll have actually advanced far more as a magician than you ever would have out there on the outside. You would have died before you'd managed to figure out how to be a magician out there. And you're going to say to me, when you see that shimmer, "Thank you, Raphael. Thank you for having me arrested. I thought I didn't want it at the time, but I did, and I needed it. Thank you for forcing me to see, getting me the help and healing I required. Now I'm stronger for it, wiser for it. Now I can begin again. Thank you for this, for doing all of this. And you know what? You'll be right to count your blessings in gratitude to me, because the next accident you were going to get into 6 days after that minor hit and run that I made sure you were arrested for, that was the one that was going to kill a family of 4 and result in years of heavier drinking, eventually being diagnosed with that liver cancer I told you about, and then committing suicide in hopelessness, guilt, and despair. See, I'm an angel. I'm not bound by temporal constructs of time. I can see the paths and where they will go. But instead of all that, you called on me. I made sure you wound up here, and you hate me for it now, but you're going to find out just how grateful you are. You'll be out of here in about 20 months. Your life is going to be incredible, and now full of love and light. People are going to respect you in your life for what you've overcome, for the experiences you've had, and how you made them something useful, something you could grow from and strengthen from. And not for nothing, but please keep in mind that I'm in here with you, buddy. Right here with you in this cell. You're welcome. See, that's the perspective of an angel. So you can see how the perspectives there are different. So someone who's calling on higher powers might not understand, as their life seemingly gets so much worse and so much harder, that what's actually going on is those higher powers are going, out of their way to do exactly what that person wanted. An angel has a much firmer foundation, larger optics to draw from, the ability to see the whole picture, at least most of it, in comparison to humans on the material plane. They can see even those parts of it we might not like. Our perspective can be limited by bias, by ego, by time and space, by the material plane we are tied to, by what we think is good or not good, acceptable or not acceptable, hard or not hard. But not an angel's. The angel's perspective doesn't evaluate things from those formats. They quite literally have more magic than us. They have a fuller grasp of purpose, which goes hand in hand with perspective. Many entities that we work with in the great arts do. They have a much greater grasp of their purpose. That's usually why they're working with us. And it's also, as we come into understanding our own purpose, why we learn to draw on them and to turn to them. Great perspective, great purpose. As above, so below. Why wouldn't you, as a magician, model yourself then on those principles of advanced perspective and purpose that say an angel examples? It's all a matter of perspective. And when we're grounded and balanced, then we begin to see clearly. Then we can affect the changes we need willfully, and maybe not have them put us through the ringer, instead of just the change we think we need. Perspective and purpose. That's how you get results in your life, in your relationships, in your magic. And side note, an angel will kick your butt if that's what you need, whether you like it or not. So calling on them, never something to be offhandedly done without balancing and grounding first. Never. Every time. Grace, balance, abundant focus and intention of the light. You have to really look at yourself hard in a mirror. Unless you want your ass kicked by them. Especially Michael. Mikhail, I have seen him do some things to the errant or casual practitioner who pulls on him without proper respect. You do not want that to happen to you. You don't want to know. So don't be that person. Or, if you are that person, you're gonna learn your lesson regardless. Until next time.